From what has been said, it is readily apparent that heavenly bodies cannot be the causes of those things which are about the understanding. For it has already been shown that it is the order of divine providence that the lower are governed and moved by the higher. Now the understanding, in the order of nature, surpasses all bodies, as is also evident from the aforesaid. It is therefore impossible that the heavenly bodies act upon the intellect directly. Therefore, they cannot be the cause in themselves of those things which are about the understanding. Still, no body acts except by motion, as is proved in Physic 8. But things which are immovable are not caused by motion. For nothing is caused by the motion of any agent except in so far as it moves its pace while it is moving. Therefore, things that are completely outside of motion cannot be caused by heavenly bodies. But those things which are about the understanding are entirely outside of motion, speaking by itself, as is clear from the Philosopher in Physics. It is therefore impossible that the heavenly bodies are in themselves the cause of those things which are about the understanding. Further, if nothing is caused by any body except insofar as it moves while it is moved, everything that receives the impression of any body must be moved. But nothing is moved but the body, as is proved in Physics 6. Therefore, everything that receives the impression of some body must be a body or some bodily power. Now it was shown in the second place that the intellect is neither a body nor a corporeal power. It is therefore impossible for the heavenly bodies to impress the intellect directly. Again, everything that is moved by someone is reduced by him from potential to act. But nothing is reduced from potential to act except by that which actually exists. It is necessary, therefore, that everything that acts and moves must be in some way, in actuality, with respect to those to which it has power to pass and move. Now the heavenly bodies are not actually intelligible, since there are certain singular sensibles. Since then, our understanding is not in power except to act intelligible things. It is impossible for the heavenly bodies to act directly on the understanding. Still, the proper operation of a thing results from its nature, which is acquired from generated things by generation, together with its proper operation. As is clear from the heavy and the light, which immediately have their proper motion at the term of their generation, unless there be something hindering, by reason of which the generative is said to move. Therefore, that which according to the principle of its nature is not subject to the actions of the heavenly bodies, nor can it be subject to them according to its operation. Now the intellectual part is not caused by any corporeal principles, but is entirely external, as was proved above. Therefore, the operation of the intellect is not directly subject to the heavenly bodies. Further, those things which are caused by celestial motions are subject to time, which is the number of the first celestial motion. Therefore, those things which completely abstract from time are not subject to heavenly things. But the understanding in its operation abstracts from time, as well as from place, for it considers the universal, which is abstracted from the here and now. Therefore, intellectual activity is not subject to celestial movements. Still, he does nothing beyond his appearance. But understanding itself transcends the species and form of any agent of body, because every bodily form is material and individualized, but understanding itself has its species from its object, which is universal and immaterial. Hence no body can understand through its corporeal form. It is therefore much less possible for any body to cause itself to be understood in another. Again, according to that by which something is united to the superiors, it is not the subject of the inferiors. But our soul, according to what it understands, is united to intellectual substances, which are higher in the order of nature than the heavenly bodies. For our soul cannot understand except according to what intellectual light is drawn from it. It is therefore impossible that intellectual activity should be directly subject to celestial movements. In addition, it will give credence to this fact if we consider what the philosophers have said about this. For the ancient natural philosophers, such as Democritus, Empedocles, and the like, maintain that the intellect does not differ from the sense, as is clear in Metaphysics 4 and De Anima 3. And therefore it followed that since sense is a kind of corporeal power, following the transformation of bodies, that this was also the case with the intellect. And for this reason they said that when the transformation of the lower bodies follows the transformation of the higher bodies, intellectual activity follows the movements of the heavenly bodies. In other words, the sun, or rather Jupiter, whom they call the supreme God, understanding by him the whole heaven, as is clear from Augustine in the book on the de civitate Dei contra paganos. From this also proceeded the opinion of the Stoics, who said that the knowledge of the intellect is caused by the fact that images of bodies are impressed upon our minds like a kind of mirror, or as a page receives printed letters without doing anything, as Boethius relates in 5 Consolatio Philosophiae. According to their opinion, it followed that intellectual ideas were impressed upon us chiefly by the impression of the heavenly bodies. Hence there were also the Stoics who especially set forth a certain fatal necessity of leading men's lives. But this position therefore appears false, as Boethius says there, because the intellect composes and divides, and compares the highest with the lowest, and knows universal and simple forms which are not found in bodies. And so it is clear that the intellect is not like receiving only the images of bodies, but has some power higher than bodies. But all the following philosophers, distinguishing the understanding from the sense, attributed the cause of our knowledge not to some bodies, but to immaterial things, just as Plato held that the cause of our knowledge is ideas. Aristotle, on the other hand, called the agent intellect. From all this we must accept that to posit that heavenly bodies are the cause of our understanding is a consequence of the opinion of those who posited that understanding does not differ from sense, as is also clear from Aristotle in his book on the soul. But this opinion is manifestly false. Therefore it is clear that it is false which posits that the heavenly bodies are a cause for us to understand directly. This is also why the Holy Scripture attributes the cause of our intelligence not to any body, but to God. Job 35:10. Where is the God who made me, who gave songs in the night, who teaches us over the cattle of the earth, instructs us over the birds of the sky, and in the psalm which teaches man knowledge? It must be known, however, that although the heavenly bodies cannot be directly the cause of our intelligence, they nevertheless work for this purpose indirectly. For although the intellect is not a corporeal virtue, yet the operation of the intellect in us cannot be completed without the operation of the corporeal virtues, which are the imagination and the memory and thinking power, as is clear from the foregoing. And hence it is that when the operations of these virtues are hindered by reason of some indisposition of the body, the operation of the intellect is hindered, as is evident in frenetic and lethargic and the like. And for this reason also, the goodness of the disposition of the human body makes it suitable for good understanding, inasmuch as from this the aforesaid powers exist stronger, whence it is said in 2 De Anima that we see that the soft in the flesh are well suited to the mind. Now the disposition of the human body is subject to celestial motions. For Augustine says in De Civitate Dei 5 that it is not at all absurd to say that certain stars are strong because of differences of bodies alone. And Damascenus says in the second book that different planets constitute in us different complexions and attitudes and dispositions, and therefore the heavenly bodies work indirectly for the good of the intelligence. And thus, just as physicians can judge of the goodness of the intellect from the constitution of the body as well as from its proximate disposition, so the astrologer from celestial movements as from the remote cause of such a disposition. And in this way it can be verified that Ptolemy says in Quadripartitum, when Mercury is in some of the houses of Saturn in the birth of someone, and he himself is strong in his being, he gives goodness of intelligence by being tender in things.